is it affected also by the repercussions nowadays in Egypt? Yeah? It was mentioning also we have some sort of this mobility with Beyond Hochschule Berlin. Yeah? We have every year summer school in GIS program. Thank you.
Could you tell us where you come from?
Tahir from Sudan.
From Sudan, thank you. And then the colleague here. Yes, standing up. Okay, there are two more, but then it's closed. Yes, noted. And here.
Okay, I came from Portugal, and my question is for all the members from the panel. Okay, and specifically to the president of German, Jordan. Yeah, I'm speaking in the microphone.
In the microphone, like that.
Okay. So, are you listening? Okay. So, my question will go to all the members and specifically to the Jordan German University. Okay? So, we are talking about mobility, how to have financial support and all those things. And my question, since I'm an engineer, I'm just focused on industry issues. For example, for the Jordan German University, there is a lot of stakeholders involved. You have German companies, you have Jordan companies, you have German teachers and Jordan teachers, you have students, all those things. So my question is, what about evaluating those mobility, okay? And even in terms of not only mobility, but in the quality of professional that you are prepared. That's my question.
Thank you very much. One up here. Yes, you can just pass it over the microphone.
Thank you. Sami Bacha, I'm Vice President of Palestine University in Bethlehem. I'm so happy to be here and participate in such an important event. I was wondering about serious final statement about areas where they are restricted for mobility, especially for an international faculty who can come and be part of any development in higher education. I'm talking about Palestine. We have very, very good, significant international relationship, and we've been developing a lot of programs. Our problem is that we still cannot invite people to come to Palestine. And I would like from the powerful people that are staying here to have a serious statement just to support our universities who are looking forward, for an international support toward having international people coming to Palestine. So it's very important that such gathering have an official statement, for such areas where we are not allowed to invite people to come because we are still under military occupation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And there was one gentleman. And one gentleman here. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And I do agree that there are some political boundaries to promote mobility. Nevertheless, some universities in Arab countries can promote accreditation actually and curriculum development to bridge the gap between the systems of these universities, and also to use the system of external examiners to come more and more to these universities. We actually started in 1990 the mobility program between Heidelberg University and Jazeera University, and resulted in 9 MDs and joint research, but actually stopped because of politics.
Thank you very much. So I'd just like to ask the panel for their comments on there were a few specific issues like the master program of the TU Berlin, but most of the questions focused either on evaluation of mobility in one way or another, or the really difficult questions of visa restrictions and other types of restrictions that we know about and that we need to take very, very seriously in terms of many of you present. Thank you. So I'll ask perhaps from the table begging, first of all.
So the question was, why do we have master's programs, and who all is accessible or eligible to coming to Egypt? And master's programs we do have because I'm convinced that if you want to do serious research, and this was my statement about introducing or furthering research in the MENA region, then you have to have equipment, modern equipment where you can do research, and that's more associated with the master's program, so it's kind of a content issue. As far as the visa restrictions goes, I'm completely powerless because, like it was mentioned, I can accept a student, let's say in El Huna in Egypt, and from Syria, I know already they will not get a visa no matter what I do. So the only thing I can do, I can talk to German government officials supporting this issue, but they also argue that's not really their point. It's an issue between, in this case, Syria and Egypt, and so we're without influence on this issue. As far as Palestine, the comment from Palestine, I just had last week a visit from the NNU University in Palestine from the Vice President, and he invited me to come back and visit him also, and I will do so. It's not exactly the same what you said. You asked for scientific exchange into Palestine, and maybe we want that, we'll try that, and I think in the end we'll manage to do that. And also, I had a visit from the president of Damascus University just a couple of weeks ago, and we talked also about restructuring when the conflict in Syria is over. I don't know when it will be, and TU Berlin will help or moderate or suggest how to set up again, how to rebuild the university or university system in Syria.
I'd like to start with the Palestinian issue. I think that the meeting should come out with a statement in favor of the free mobility of faculty and students to and from Palestine. I think it's practically a basic human right at this point that should be supported. Then I'd like to come back to the Euro-Mediterranean University in Fez as another model that can be very useful for exchanges in both directions. At this university, there's an ENSA, it's a national, it's a European model school of applied sciences. And it's the ENSA of Lyon and Turin in Italy and Barcelona. And all of these are contributing to the school. And again, the vice president of the school is not Moroccan, is European. So this is again a venue that can attract students from Europe as well as from other parts of the Arab world, and it can be a strong factor for mobility.
Yes, just one word about the visa. I think that that 2 years ago we have had a strong problem in France with the visa. Now I think that it's quite finished, and the student is not considered like a migrant but like a talent. But it's true that it's again sometimes difficult. For the first year, I think that after the master, just for the master and for the PhD, he really is more easily to go in France now, with Campus France. And secondly, I want to say that, like I said in the Roman project, the University of Marseille and the University of Montpellier, they are very involved inside the organization. And I think that for the next year, it will be more easily with these two universities, especially to have some relation, and strong relation, not only with these two universities, with all the universities. I know there is here some universities from Paris, so I know that they are very interested. So.
I will refer to the question of my colleague regarding evaluating the experience. Well, I said in my presentation statement that we all know that because all students, they go to Germany, everybody. So we feel the difference, between the student who went to Germany and after 1 year, what kind of person he is. It's not only about education, it's also about being independent, being exposed to another culture, etc. So, and then parents also give us feedback about what kind of, persons they receive back after this experience. Another indicator is really employability. We have a very high percentage of employability for our graduates, it's well known. Talking about pragmatics, and thinking of projects for collaboration between the Arab universities. I have one story to tell. Sometimes it's good really to think of the approach, bottom-up approach. I remember that I have visited one of the Arab universities to be an external examiner for their graduation projects. I'm an architect, and we call something called jury. We go and evaluate projects. Panel of jurors, and I really liked many of the projects I have seen, and I thought, why don't we have a shared exhibition for our graduation projects? The following year, we were like 4 universities coming together, the top projects from each university, and we had this exhibition. And because we felt the value of the result of this shared experience, it expanded and now it became an institution. So it was not imposed from up on the professors and the students of architecture. It came from the bottom because we felt the value of this shared experience. Now the important thing is not to be blocked by the institutions and to be supported, to be flexible about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just maybe one comment from the side of EUA or European side in terms of the visas. We have been struggling permanently trying to lobby on this topic for a long time, but Europe as an entity, as the EU, has achieved a lot, but one thing it has no responsibility for, as our colleague from the TU Berlin said, is the visa question. It's up to the Home Affairs ministries of all the nation states in Europe. So it's really remains a very difficult and a very national issue. At the same time, and my colleagues here can also correct me if I'm wrong, there is a visa. For young researchers, there is a possibility, and that's what you were talking about from the French perspective. There is a regulation at European level that allows young researchers, once inside Europe, to circulate around and through the European Union states freely. So that is our slight progress and a big advantage given to young scientists. So I would like to do 2 things. One is to ask you to thank the panelists for this interesting Thank you very much. And much more, maybe more important than that, is you are now invited to lunch sponsored by the Arab Association, my dear friend Sultan Orabi here, and it's outside up here in the open area. And we look forward to seeing you back in an hour, in 1 hour. Thank you very much and enjoy your lunch.
Rector Conference, the president of the Portuguese Rector Conference is here to open the panel.
Well, good afternoon. I hope that you had a nice lunch under the pine trees and that you're ready for the second part of this day. It is quite an honor for me to be here, and I want to be very brief, but I really have to thank the organization, and particularly the 2 associations, the Arab Organization and the AUA, for this very kind invitation, and also, obviously, the Princeton University of Technology, and not forgetting my good friends from Barcelona, in fact, were the soul and the beginning of this event. Now, we have a very ambitious scenery divided in 2 parts, with very experienced speakers, and I will very briefly say a few words to introduce the overall panel, and then I'll say a brief word about the first part, and when you change speakers we go to the second part. Now, this is a very ambitious title. It is a very ambitious title, by saying that you want to educate global citizens and preparing for a global workforce. And the fact that you are ambitious is not bad at all. It means that you have a dream and that you want to make a difference. And I hope that by the presentations I'll have the very difficult task of keeping the time, so I'm going myself to be very strict as far as my first introduction. The first part is really related with the mobility, which is a word that has been quite said during the morning, but it also involves global citizenship. And this is a very, very difficult and very strong concept. We are, of course, very diverse in background, in values and experience, but I will say that all this part really deals with humanity as a whole. So we are really here concerned about the humanity. Global education is now becoming a business. And we all know that if we deal with knowledge, we are not doing a business. We are dealing with something that is very, very sacred in our way of being academics. So I think that humanity is the background of all that we are trying to do here, because our students, wherever they come from and wherever do they go, they'll definitely have to have this humanity background. The four speakers are very diverse, and I'll be very briefly say a few words about them. Professor Mansour Al-Awar is the Chancellor of the Hamdan bin Mohammed University in Dubai. Then we have my good friend Carla Salvateg, who's the Vice Rector of Bologna. She's an historian, very experienced in international relationship and international affairs. We've been together with this involvement in Brazil. Professor Nora Al-Zougli from the Tafila Technical University in Jordan. She's a physicist. She's got a background in physics, so it's very interesting to have an academic, a pure academic, to deal with these values. And finally, we have Gabriela Bergen, not Harry Nodal. Now, Gabriela is a master in political science. She's also a traveler, so in herself she's a good example. Although she's a master, she represents ESU, the Association of European Students, and she'll also tell about her experience. We're going to do it in sequence, so I'll give the floor to Professor Mansour.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mr. Chair, colleagues in the panel, ladies and gentlemen. I know that it's a very difficult time for us, I mean for this panel in particular, because we're coming into the graveyard slot and after lunch. And it reminds me actually, one of the Emirates, they have invited me a few years back to conduct a workshop, a small seminar, but it was at 2 o'clock, a similar timing. So I arrived to the hall, and there was 13 workshops, simultaneous workshops, and arrived around 1:45. I went to a room, it was only accommodating 30 people, and I plugged in my computer, and I started to wait for the audience to show up. 10 to 2, nobody showed up. 5 to 2, nobody showed up, and I had to conduct the whole thing in 1 hour, 2 to 3. 2 to 2, nobody showed up. 2:01, a guy with the briefcase, he entered the back of the room and he sat at the back, and I begged him to come forward. When he came forward and sat down, I started immediately to talk about my presentation. And the poor guy did not then discover that he's alone in the room until I said, this is my presentation and I hope you enjoyed it. And he had to do a big round of applause, of course, for the speaker, and he discovered that he is alone in the room. And I said, any questions? He said, no. Then I said, well, I have to pack up and pack back and go away. While I'm going out, he said, Mansour, I have a single request, a favor. I thought that he needs a ride to Dubai because it was not in Dubai. I said, of course, but may I know why? He said, because I am the next speaker after you. So it was kind of, I mean, Mr. Chair, so please, this is wonderful audience that you have, you'll never be left alone anyway.
Your time is over now.
Yes, not yet, 8 minutes. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to be invited to the second Arab Bureau Conference on Higher Education and speak to you as a panelist on educating global citizens for tomorrow. In the briefing for speakers and chairs sent to me last month, I found a definition of global citizenship reading. This was the brief that I have received. Global citizenship has been defined as relating to persons who place the global community above their identity as a citizen of a particular nation or place. The idea is that one's identity transcends geography or political borders, and that responsibilities or rights are or can be derived from membership in a broader class, which they put it as a humanity. This does not mean that such a person denounces or waives their nationality or other more local identities, but such identities are given second place to their membership in a global community. In general usage, the term may have much the same meaning as world citizen or cosmopolitan. This was the brief that I had received. As mentioned in the briefing, the definition of global citizen is quoted from Wikipedia, but it is also adopted by the conference. That is why I found it impossible for me, actually, to pass over it. On the contrary, it should be extensively dealt with. The notion that the global citizens are those persons who place global community above their identity as a citizen of a particular nation is entirely, from my perspective, unrealistic and vague. As a matter of fact, we all are citizens of different nations of the world. So we belong to those nations and have a sense of belonging increasingly developed over time. Our families and schools teach us that it is a great honor to die for our nations. And they always come first and second to none. We gradually acquire deeply rooted feelings of belonging to a particular group, race, and nation. Our strong sense of national identity is to be shaped based on so many factors, the most important of which are religion, language, and history. With that in mind, do you think that it may be acceptable to tell students at the higher education, forget what you had been taught in the past? You will have a new identity, global identity, or humanity, which is superior to the national one, as it has become old-fashioned. There is not a particle of truthfulness in whatever we may say. Ladies and gentlemen, to me, we belong to global identity or humanity because we belong to the national identity. And the global identity is logically based on the national identity, not the other way around. Any infringement of the national identity will undoubtedly result in an infringement of the global one. And hence, we will suffer from loss of national identity. At least crisis of both identities. We can neither give the national identity second place, nor sacrifice it for the alleged global identity. For the sake of argument, let us consider the global identity a matter of fact that has already been granted. Who would determine its values to be observed? Is it superpowers, the United Nations, or new global representatives? And how they would be achieved on the ground, implementation. Regardless of who and how, do you think that all values and principles of different nations would be considered by the global identity? In my opinion, the answer would be a resounding no. That is why raising the issue of global identity will not only be a failure, but also a new born of contention among nations. In my view, instead of giving the national identity second place, as was in the brief sent to us, It is better to try to remove the conflict of interests at both national and global levels. The national identity should be dealt with as the cornerstone of global identity or humanity and the basic unit of global community. In order to help our students to better communicate, interact with the global community, we have to teach them how high ethical values and how to deal with others with all due respect. At the same time, the global community should adopt and maintain the values of equality, justice, and fairness towards all nations regardless of power, influence, or wealth. When we were young students at the school, we were taught so many moral precepts of Islam, as we are Muslims in this part of the world, majority. When we deal with other people, one of those verses in the Holy Quran, it says, mankind, Ya ayyuhan nas, we have created you from male and female and make you into nations and tribes that you may know one another. Moreover, even from the prophetic traditions emphasize the value of equality, peace be upon him, the Prophet, where he says, no Arab may claim an advantage over a non-Arab except on account of God-fearing. Ladies and gentlemen, pursuant to the normal course of nature, national identity should always come on top of priorities with mutual deep respect and understanding with global community and identity. Thank you for your undivided attention and patience. Thank you very much.
Let me first please join our chair for thanking the organizers and our hosts. I must say that it's really a privilege to be here with you and be able to discuss and to present some point of views that are quite, I would say, different perceptions of the topic. So I think the discussion will be quite interesting. I did the same. Receiving some briefing and input. The first question was trying to see how in my country the concept of education for global citizenship is present in the official documents and how much policies are supporting that. And then passing on to my institution and what the experience in my institution is. So I tried hard, I must say, to find the concept of educating for global citizenship in official documents regarding the university education in Italy. The concept of educating for global citizenship, it's much more present in documents related to primary education. I think it's no surprise. Primary education in Italy sees very different classrooms of children coming from all over the world, and it would be strange if the concept of educating for global citizenship would not be addressed. However, if I look at the document, the guidelines for the primary curriculum, I can find exactly this tension. The tension between the strong idea of the need of a unitarian concept of citizenship as well as a plural concept of citizenship. So we find guidelines which emphasize the historical roots of national memories, the cultural heritage of the territory, and at the same time they say that the mission of school education is to build Italian citizens who are at the same time European and world citizens, recalling that global challenges cannot be solved within national borders. So it says the tools to raise awareness or belong to a planetary community should be identified in the building of relations among the cultural experiences emerged in the different places and times of European and world history. If I look at documents related to university, the concept of global citizenship, in fact, I was wrong in saying that does not appear, but appears linked to a very peculiar context, which is the context of education related to international cooperation with developing countries. And in those documents, global citizenship is related either to educational programs or course units devoted to international cooperation, humanitarian aid, development studies, and all the kind of awareness that operating in this field can bring upon university education. So this is the situation if I look at official documents in Italy. If I go down to my institution, I would find something similar, but in a different perspective. In our internationalization strategy 2020, we stressed 3 objectives: make a difference in policy making on key issues at the global level, become the partner of choice at a global level, and keep improving the quality of teaching and research online with the growing challenges of the global arena. So all these strategic objectives stress that we have to ask each program to identify the key international and intercultural competencies within the different subject areas, to identify the key stakeholders at a global level, in order to rethink education, rethink the learning outcomes in an enlarged context. And I would come now to my personal definition of global citizenship, which comes from my background as an historian and comes also from my background of an historian working in the last years within many European networks, because I think that has shaped very much the idea that we have to deconstruct citizenship as a concept of status and try to rethink it in terms of citizenship as a practice. And if we think citizenship as a practice, then we are not bound to borders of a community. We will rather move and see citizenship as a way of being active, of participation in the development, of course, of civil, of political, social rights, but also in the definition of new rights and new responsibilities concerning environment, trade, security, minorities, children, migrants, and many other issues which are not bound to a specific community. So I think that this complex web of rights and responsibilities, which are implicating citizens in various ethical, political, social decisions, it's very important when we think about citizenship beyond the state. So if we think about educating citizenship with the concept of citizenship as a status, we see that citizenship has turned from an inclusive ideal to an exclusive policy, namely preparing membership in the national, especially in the public domain, as it was defined in the 19th century as the nation-state. So I think global citizenship will mean not just overcoming national borders, but taking into account the many different communities and the many forms of citizenships in the meaning of practice of claiming rights, as Anna Arendt would say, in the 21st century. So that means we are challenged to prepare students for taking part simultaneously in various domains, in transnational, subnational communities, in virtual and geographic links, in communities held together not by a public power, but by shared experiences, for example, war, migration, by the law of a particular medium, by passion for a certain form of art, by shared interest or common political convictions. If we take this concept, I think we need at least 4 points of attention for educating students or shaping a new way of educating ourselves together. So we need strategies to ensure a more equal access and participation to higher education. In a world of diversities, we need to foster competencies for communication and collaboration in this world of diversities, of language, of religion, of ethnic background, gender, physical and mental abilities. And then I think we need something which is not always clear to us, but we need to bridge the gap, to think about the essential humanistic competencies for citizens trained in science and technology, and we need to think about the essential scientific and technological competencies for citizens trained in humanistic, social and creative disciplines. And then, if I have 2 minutes more, I would come to mobility. I think mobility is a way to foster awareness of the different role and articulation of disciplines in the different contexts and coexistence of different communities. It fosters the need of flexibility, of an individualized approach, which has a tension with making mobility sustainable. So we need it to be very individual, but at the same time sustainable. If I could come to a conclusion, I think we also have the issue of recognition to put on the floor, and the responsibility of higher education institutions to engage in the recognition of degrees and study periods to ensure full participation in the professional, cultural, and social communities. So I would conclude with a question. Not just how can we educate students, but how can we at best recognize the multiple belonging of people in today's world? How can we recognize the active participation of our students and colleagues to very different communities and the potential of development and definition of new rights and responsibilities? Can we recognize global citizens as a practice in our academic community? And can we make it a tool to improve the quality of our programs and the sustainability of our mobility programs? These are my questions to the audience.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Noura Al-Jarbi, Assistant Professor in Tafila Technical University. Today I would like to tell my Erasmus experience in Stockholm, Sweden. I heard actually about Erasmus program from my university from Professor Salih Jufut. Actually, my university is one of the partner universities in Erasmus program. When I heard about this Erasmus program, I applied for doctoral study. I applied for doctoral scholarship in Sweden through Juscelino project. 6 months later, I got the scholarship. It was for 2 years and 10 months at Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, Sweden. I started preparing for departure and actually applying for visa. I contacted Erasmus coordinator to help me to find accommodation there. Actually she helped me and find it before leaving Jordan. After arrival in Stockholm, this was in January 2009, actually it was different city, Stockholm, and the people there were very kind and welcoming people, and the weather was actually very tough weather. It's 5-6 months snowing there, and but I overcome this. Actually, two days after arrival in Stockholm, I met my supervisor. He was, and he is a gentleman, and he introduced actually my group. The group was international group. It includes Chinese, German, Swedish, Finnish, Hungarian, Romanian people, and they were very kind. And actually, from this nationality of diversity of the nationality, I got knowledge about different culture, not just Swedish culture, but about other cultures. Actually, in my PhD study, there were courses that we have overcome them. These courses, 60 points, and they were very interesting. One of these courses, it was about nanotechnology, and once a week, and in each lecture there is different lecturer, and it's ended up by seminar on board to Finland. The most important thing during my PhD, it was I gave birth to a baby boy. We named him Hashim, and this was real challenge actually for me, because this was the first baby and I can't deal with him. So the doctors there and the nurses helped me to take care of him, and from this I learned how the Swedish child care works, and it was important for me actually. The 3 years that I spent in Sweden during my PhD, it was actually the best. During these 3 years, or now if I go back to the Sweden, I don't feel foreign, because there is people that I can know them, there is places that I can recognize, there is culture that I understand, there is tough weather that I tolerate. Actually, my Erasmus experience was fruitful experience and important experience for me. Erasmus experience is a valuable opportunity. From this experience, I learned how the people in other countries work, how they live. I learned to assist foreign people, to appreciate cultures that are different from my own. I learned or I improved my basic characteristic like open-mindedness, to be more flexible, ability to change, to be more independent, and actually to understand from different points of view. Also it's broadened my knowledge of my subject. And as I said, it gave me valuable confidence to just go and do things. And the Erasmus experience increased my understanding of the need of the study of foreign languages and foreign cultures. And I encourage students to just grab the opportunity or Erasmus opportunity and travel abroad. And I have suggestions for mobility programs that during my PhD, I did my PhD in 2 years and 2 months. 2 years and 10 months. And actually this in Europe, I think it's not enough to complete PhD. So I suggest to increase the period for mobility programs. And I suggest also to increase the incoming and outcoming scholarships. And yes, to increase them. Yes, that's all. Thank you for your attention.
To make your presentation. Thank you.
I hope you still have a bit of patience and energy to listen to me, as I'm the fourth panelist. I will talk about the role that mobility plays in preparing students for to be global citizens, and also I will make some considerations with regards to student mobility between institutions in the Arab world and Europe. So I represent the European Students' Union. It's an umbrella organization of 47 national unions of students from 39 countries, and overall we represent 15 million students in Europe. Our aim is to represent and promote the educational, social, economic, and cultural interests of students at the European level, and we work with all relevant bodies. And one way of promoting students' interests and our view of education is through promoting mobility and global cooperation. First of all, I would like to say that we are addressing the question whether student mobility prepares for global citizenship, and this question already embraces the view that education has a role to prepare students to be active citizens. And it is, I would say that at least in Europe, it's more and more rare to have this view and this vision, and I can assure you that I receive a lot of invitations to participate at panels where we only talk about education in relation to the labor market. So yes, it is important, of course, but there is this threat to have this consumerist vision of education, and it is threatening because then it waves out the possibilities for active citizenship. And it is also a threat when we talk about mobility. The consumerist vision is also promoted for mobility. Mobility programs now introduces loans. Higher tuition fees are applied for foreign students. So we do have a bit of commercialization of mobility. And this is a threat. If we have this kind of mobility, then we will never have global citizenship. And with ESU, we lobby very much. And we, for example, with Erasmus Plus program, we really tried our best to have some sort of notion of active citizenship. If you are seen as a consumer, then you cannot, you can only react and claim for a product, and you don't participate in like the decision-making processes. You don't participate in the making of the product. So this type of education includes students from decision making. It lowers student involvement. And as Clara said, I do agree that we have to see citizenship as a practice, and university is a perfect place for us to practice our citizenship and to start what we will be, how we will become active citizens once we finish our studies. When we talk about mobility and global citizenship, we have to keep in mind the different purposes of education, which are finding a job, but also the personal development of the students, the preparedness to be active citizenship, and also our contribution to a knowledge-based society. For ESU, mobility, whether it is long-term mobility, you seek a full degree abroad, or whether it is short-term, like some exchange programs, is a right for all students, or this is what we think, it should be a right for all students. It is a chance for acquiring intercultural competencies and understanding, also democracy skills and language skills, and all those skills are needed in today's more globalizing world. And it is a key for development of a society where everyone can live together more peacefully. And the notions of solidarity, responsibility, diversity, and cooperation should be the main concerns in the development of an international environment. Why we think that mobility in higher education and mobility of students and staff will promote global citizenship is that we realize that with mobility we increase our global cooperation. With ESU, we have, I personally have the task of leading global student cooperation work. And it is a challenge because we have all our regional and national backgrounds, but we also realize that we are stronger together and we have similar concerns. And there is also, in today's world, there is also for us the possibility not only to lobby and discuss with our national governments, but we can directly make some decisions on global level. For example, right now we are working on post-2015 development agenda, and there are many meetings and chances for students to cooperate on this and share our views. And we need to do this together because those goals will apply to everyone in all continents. But there are many challenges until we reach the mobility that we want. First of all is fighting this consumerist vision, and then if we want a mobility that will foster active and global citizenship, then we have to tackle the following challenges. First of all, access to mobility. Today, students that go abroad have the chance to study abroad are students that come mainly from very privileged socioeconomic background. And we have the target, the European higher education area has a target of 20% of mobile students by 2020. But even 20% of mobile student is not enough to have this global citizenship that we want. So if we want more access, it raises the questions of funding. We need our governments and the European Union to make the correct decisions and allocate the resources properly so that more students and more staff can become mobile. And that's why we want more grants and not more loans. But another challenge is also the quality of education. We have different higher education systems, and of course the quality may vary. And because the quality is a bit different, then we have problems of recognitions of our degrees. And sometimes students, we go abroad and we come back, and actually we just lost a year, not in the sense that we didn't gain anything from that year, but we have to repeat this year in our countries because our credits have not been recognized. Also, if we want proper mobility and take advantage of internationalization, we need to better integrate the foreign students. We need better student involvement and better student support. And more interaction between the mobile students and the ones that will stay at home. And then finally, the last challenge is brain drain. We talked a bit about it this morning. So we should really aim at balanced mobility and brain circulation. Finally, I will one more minute. I will finish with some consideration of mobility between the Arab world and Europe. I think that it's just a start. We need to cooperate more. The challenges that I just mentioned apply very much for the mobility between the Arab world and Europe. The main problems will be visa regulations and fundings, but I really think that we have same values, but the implementation, for example, of democracy, this kind of exchange are to be really put forward in the mobility between the Arab world and Europe. Thank you.
Well, I think that we are doing quite well. We have 50 minutes before giving the floor to the audience. I'd just like to say that we have here 3 or 4 challenging ideas, very strong ideas. This concept from getting to the global through the nation is a very important principle. I think that citizenship as a practice and not just as a framework, as Professor Carlos said, is also very interesting. This experience of going abroad, my generation had this capacity, but we were very few. I mean, what is happening now is that it's hundreds of thousands of people that are moving all over. And don't forget that we are here in the Middle East talking about Europe, but don't forget Latin America and Asia. And as a Portuguese, I have to draw your attention to the globalization. And finally, all these very important statements that Gabriel has raised. I think that I will add a final word before asking comments from the floor. I think that we are all very concerned not with globalization, but with massification. We are very concerned with massification, whereby we are not individuals, we are just a number. And I think that what we are facing here as educators is exactly trying to avoid this big risk. I'm sure that in your countries, as in Portugal, we are approached by the government, by the companies, And I always say that knowledge is not a transactional good as all the other goods that we want to transact throughout the world. So globalization is one thing, massification is another, but I think that I will shut myself and ask questions from the floor. We have around, with my 2 minutes, we still have some time for, I hope, very interesting questions and some fruitful discussion. Professor Sultan.
Actually, I don't have a question, but I have a comment about mobility. I know how it is good for everybody to travel. I remember when Nora came to Tafila, at that time I was the president of Tafila Technical University. Her husband was a chemist, and just he was appointed only for 1 year. They applied for both of them, Nora and Khalid. After 6 months, they received the scholarship, and both of them, they were afraid to go to Europe. They came to my office, I remember, and asked me for a permission to decline the scholarship, not to go. I said, why you want to go? He said, we want to go to Sweden, it's so far, it is snowing over there, we don't know what to do over there. I said, if you will not go, I will fire you from the university. You have to go, both of you. By force, I asked both of them to go to Sweden. After 6 months, her husband Khalid is now professor of chemistry at Tafila, because he was one of my students at Yarmouk University. He wrote me a nice letter. He said, Professor Sultan, really we appreciate your force, because you force us to go there, and we are so happy there. And you have the son over there, Hashim, and they came back to Tafila. And by the way, Tafila Technical University, I was the founder of that university. And we start from the scratch. That's 2005. And we were lucky by Erasmus Mundus. We had so many students, we have sent them. I don't know if Salih Al-Shfout is here. Yes, he was Dean of Scientific Research that time. And he was the coordinator for Erasmus Mundus. We have sent many students to Europe by Erasmus Mundus. And also we have sent about 70 students to the States to finish their doctoral degrees. Without those people, Tafila Technical University now will not be standing like as it is now. I really appreciate it.
We forced us to you don't know the real reason. Now she knows. The real reason was I was pregnant.
Therefore, I'm so happy that Nora is now back and she is teaching, and she has given the speech of her success story.